Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality.
Welcome to Transition Radio.
Well, good evening. My name is Mark Angela.
And I'm Lena Aria. We wanted to thank you guys for joining us this Tuesday night. We're here in our beautiful home here in the upper mountains of
New Mexico.
southern New Mexico.
Yes.
And we enjoy it here. It's been a little windy,
It has. But
not cold.
compared to all the craziness in the world, I mean, it's just, I think there's a lot of awakening taking place. And even with ourselves, the more we think we know, the more we learn, especially regarding all the lies of the biblical stories, because that's all they were, stories being told.
Yeah, there's this guy that we just recently found out about. His name is Baruch Spinoza.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, I guess he was from Holland, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was excommunicated from his family and from the Jewish temple that he was a part of or something,
Mhm.
his community, and basically cursed
Pretty
because
much.
he was pointing out certain things about the Bible that people and religions and churches and cathedrals and popes and priests and pastors don't want people to know about.
Yeah.
Apparently, they know all about it because if you go to a seminary, if you go learning anything regards to theology, if you get your doctrinal of theology and all that, and you find out the truth.
Basically, there's not very many truths in the Bible, if at all. All the stories contradict themselves, all the story depending on the time and the author and the author's way of thinking. That's what you're reading. And I've been sharing stuff. If you guys want to know what I'm talking about or we're talking about, go to the part in Facebook where we make comments, not Facebook, and on YouTube. There's like a comment section and you share things. I've shared a ton of stuff there regarding what we're talking about, and your minds would be blown. I mean, totally blown.
When I was a little kid, I remember I would have like a row of Childcraft and World Book encyclopedias underneath the coffee table. That was my internet at the time. And that was all I knew other than maybe picking up a newspaper, But these days, there's so much information.
Too much information, actually.
I mean, not just the fact that there's too much. It's just if you want to know the truth,
you can't hide lies anymore.
You can find it.
I know. You can't. It's, yeah.
I mean, people say, oh no, people were found wandering in the Sinai Peninsula. That proves that, that the Exodus did happen. And all you have to do is go, look up facts and it will refute that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Exodus never happened.
Jericho's walls never came tumbling down. I mean, whatever else there is. There was Matthew.
So
I know there was this guy that was your friend back in Florida who posted, since when did a guy named Matthew, Mark, and Luke and John become Jewish?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like those names don't even exist, and people Christians to this day still believe that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
And that we all came from Adam and Eve when it's chromosomally impossible. It's just impossible for an entire world to be populated by two people. It's impossible. The science is all there, but people still want to believe the lie about the snake and this and that. It's fairy tales, it's lies, but anyway, we're going to dive into today's show, and it's a special show tonight. And again, I'm Mark, and tonight we are transmitting on a frequency specifically calibrated to bypass the standard archonic interference patterns that dominate the daytime airwaves.
And I'm Lena. If you found this broadcast tonight, it's because your internal divine spark is already resonating with the friction of a reality that is felt increasingly mechanical, cold, and predatory.
Tonight, we're moving past the metaphors of religion and picking up the actual system diagnostic for the human condition. Our episode is titled Waking the Battery, the truth about the simulation, because for too long, the human spirit has been used as a vital power source for a system it doesn't even realize it's inhabiting.
The Spiritist records and the Gnostic fragments are finally aligning on a single, undeniable coordinate for our species. By the year 2057, the planetary hardware will no longer support the archontic operating system that has recycled human souls in this loop for literally millennia.
The frequency of Earth is shifting from a world of trials and expiation to a world of regeneration. However, the forensic problem we face is that the majority of humanity is still running legacy software powered by shame, fear, and a desperate sense of lack.
Tonight, we are going to show you how to identify the emotional malware in your nervous system so you can begin the process of unlinking. It is time to stop being a battery for the architect and start reclaiming your sovereignty as a fragment of the true source. And with that, we bring you Vignette 1, The Blind Architect.
This world doesn't begin as something natural. It is assembled, layer by layer, piece by piece. A system constructed to resemble something real. From a distance, it looks complete. Ordered, balanced, intentional. But the closer you move toward it, the more something feels off. The structure holds, but it doesn't resolve, because it wasn't created from understanding. It was built from imitation, a reflection of something greater, reproduced without ever fully grasping what it was. And at the center of that structure is authority, a figure that claims origin, that demands recognition, but cannot see what it's actually built. Because the system itself is blind, everything here reflects that limitation. Every form, every object, every layer is designed to contain, to define, to hold something in place. And inside that containment is you, not as something that belongs here, but as something placed into it. Something that doesn't match the system it's inside. That mismatch isn't an error. It's the only part that doesn't belong. The only part that doesn't follow the rules. Time reinforces everything around it. Cycles repeat, patterns stabilize, until the structure begins to feel fixed, unchangeable. But that stability isn't real. It's mechanical. And the moment you begin to see it, even slightly, something shifts, because the system depends on you accepting it as what it claims to be. But if you stop and look at it directly, it starts to lose that position. Not through force, not through resistance, just through recognition. And once that happens, the structure doesn't feel the same anymore. It doesn't hold the same weight. It doesn't define you the same way. Because what built it cannot replicate what you are. And it cannot see the part of you that knows that. That's where this begins.
If we want to hit the forensic depth required to understand our jailbreak, we have to start with the identity of the warden. In the ancient Gnostic texts, specifically the Apocryphon of John, he's named Yaldabaoth.
And he isn't God in the way we've been programmed to believe. He is a demiurge, an accidental intelligence that mistook himself for the absolute source because he simply could not see what was above him.
The forensic history of Yaldabaoth is fascinating because he is the byproduct of an error in the higher realms. The texts say he was born from Sophia, a divine principle that attempted to create without the consent of her partner, the spirit.
Because that creation happened without full balance of the spirit. The result was a being that was monstrous in its isolation. Yaldabaoth was cast out into the lower regions of the abyss. And because he was alone, he genuinely believed he was the only power in existence.
He looked into the void and proclaimed, "I am a jealous God, and there's no other God beside me." But the Gnostic writers tell us that as soon as he said those words, a voice from the higher light answered him, saying, "You are a mistaken Samael."
Samael means God of the blind. That is the fundamental forensic truth of our material world. It was built by a blind craftsman who tried to copy the light of the higher realms using the heavy entropic materials of the abyss.
This is why the material world feels like a simulation of a higher reality. It has the shape of truth, but it lacks the substance of eternity. It is a world of shadows, reflections, and copies of copies.
The world he built is governed by a system called Harmony, or fate. This is a self-executing code that ensures every cause has an effect, every action has a reaction, and every soul remains tethered to the physical plane.
But here's the forensic glitch that the archons, his rulers, are terrified of. When Yaldabaoth breathed life into the first human form, he unwittingly transferred the divine spark he had inherited from his mother, Sophia, into the human vessel.
He realized too late that he had created a being that outranked him. Human beings contain a fragment of the pleroma, the total light that the architect himself lacks, which makes us a direct threat to his authority.
The entire history of religion and social control is essentially the history of the architect trying to get that fire back. Since he cannot take it from us by force, he has to convince us to give it away through worship and submission.
He created the archons to be his administrators, his governors of the simulation. They are the ones who manage the thrones and the dominions that act as the border crossings for the soul, ensuring that we never look up long enough to notice the ceiling.
Yeah. And the primary way they keep us in this state of amnesia is through the management of attention. If they can keep your attention occupied with the dramas of the material world, you will never have the stillness required to remember your lineage.
They've built an entire world that acts as a Loosh harvesting machine. Loosh is the high frequency emotional energy that a divine spark produces when it is in a state of crisis, fear, or fanatical devotion.
And there's a lot of that going on right now. So the archons feed on this energy. It is the vital power that sustains their existence in the lower realms. To ensure a steady supply, they have engineered 5 specific emotional states that act as the invisible walls of yourselves.
These 5 emotions are not human nature. They are nervous system malware. Tonight, we are going to perform a forensic audit on these states so you can begin the process of unlinking your spark from the machine.
We're going to start with a background hum of artificial fear. This is the persistent low level signal of wrongness that vibrates in the back of your skull from the moment you are born.
It is designed to make you identify exclusively with your body's mortality. If the architect can keep you convinced that you are the vulnerable, dying vessel, then the fear of death becomes the ultimate control mechanism.
This fear keeps the organism in a state of permanent bracing. You're always waiting for the floor to drop out, always waiting for the catastrophic event to happen, which prevents the nervous system from ever settling into the frequency of gnosis.
Gnosis is the state of direct recognition, the remembering of your origin. The archons know that gnosis is the only thing that can burn through the simulation, so they use the background hum to ensure your signal is always jammed with static.
Lots of static. Then we move into the ontological shame, the preemptive strike against your personal sovereignty. Unlike guilt, which is a healthy response to a mistake, shame is a lie told about your very essence.
It whispers that you are fundamentally broken, sinful, or stained. It uses your own inner voice to tell you that you are the one soul in the universe that is too complicated to be saved by the light.
By convincing the spark that it is unworthy of the light, the archons ensure that you police yourself or others. You become the guard of your own self, perpetually looking down at your failures instead of up at the stars.
These first two walls, fear and shame, ensure that the prisoner never even tries to leave the cell. They create an internal contract of unworthiness that we re-sign every morning
Yeah.
when we wake up in the simulation.
But the 2057 deadline is approaching, and the internal walls are starting to crack as the planetary vibration rises. The architect is desperate, and the archons are increasing the loosh harvest to record levels. Record.
Tell me about it. If you want to survive the planetary upgrade, you have to understand how to uninstall these frequencies. You have to move from the helix state of total identification with the body to the pneumatic state of the sovereign witness.
We've just audited the first two layers of the archonic firewall, the background hum of fear and the ontological lock of shame. These are the holding patterns that keep the soul from moving, but the next three walls are designed to harvest your movement once you've actually started reaching for reality.
The third wall is perhaps the most active in our modern consumer culture, and the Gnostic texts identify it by the Greek term epithemia. While modern translations often call this desire, that word is too soft. The reality is much more predatory.
The archons have taken your soul's natural infinite expansion and compressed it into a localized finite hunger. This is the hunger loop, a state where you're constantly reaching for something in the material world to solve an ache that actually originated in the pleroma.
They have convinced you that the hollow feeling in your solar plexus is a lack of status, a lack of beauty, or a lack of possessions. Because the material world is structurally incapable of holding the infinite light of the spark. Every fix, quote unquote, you buy is designed to fail.
Think about the mechanics of a modern addiction or even a simple purchase. You feel the reaching, you get the dopamine hit of the acquisition. And within hours or days, the loosh harvest begins as the high fades into a deeper sense of emptiness than you started with.
The archons thrive on this cycle of reaching and failing because it keeps the spark perpetually oriented outward. If you're looking for the source in a shopping mall or a social media feed, you're looking in the one place the architect knows it cannot be found.
Then we move into the fourth wall, which we call dead grief. This is a distortion of the genuine mourning that the soul feels when it recognizes its distance from the original light.
In the Pistis Sophia, the Gnostic text found in Nag Hammadi, we read about the repentances of Sophia, where the divine wisdom principle literally weeps because she remembers the pleroma and realizes she is no longer there. This is living grief. It is directional, it is honest, and it acts as a compass pointing back to home.
But the archons cannot have you following a compass, so they take the directional ache and shred it into formless ambient heaviness. They turn your homesickness for the infinite into a quiet, private despair that tells you that this is just the way things are.
Dead grief makes the material prison feel like natural law. It convinces the prisoner that the bars are part of their own skeleton, making the very idea of a planetary upgrade or an exit feel like a cruel joke or a delusional fantasy.
But finally, we have the fifth wall, small rage. This is the forensic theft of your revolutionary energy. The Gnostic text describes the human spirit as containing a fire built for the cosmos, a massive power that should be used to incinerate the archonic simulation.
The archons are terrified of this fire, so they give you matchsticks to spend it on. They manipulate the simulation to ensure that you are constantly triggered by petty grievances, political theater, and personal slights.
Every time you lose your peace over a comment on the internet or a slight from a coworker, you're spending the fire that was meant to fuel your jailbreak. You're wasting your cosmic arsenal on targets that are too small to ever change your reality.
And this is the masterstroke of the harvest. By keeping you in a state of small rage, they ensure that your energy never coheres into a unified force of sovereignty. You're essentially a nuclear reactor being used to power one single broken light bulb. And with that, we wanted to show you Vignette 2, The Five Walls.
The system doesn't hold you in place physically. It shapes how you experience everything. What feels like reality is filtered through a set of internal pressures that keep you contained without ever needing walls. It starts subtly, a constant background tension, just enough to keep your attention anchored, to the body, to survival, to unease. Then it becomes more specific, a voice that feels like your own, quietly reinforcing the idea that something about you isn't right, that something needs to be corrected. From there, the pressure shifts outward, a constant pull towards something missing, something just out of reach, convincing you that completion exists somewhere outside of you. But every time you move toward it, it disappears. And what's left behind is weight, a kind of heaviness that doesn't come from a single event, but settles in gradually, until it feels normal, until it feels like part of you. Then your energy turns outward again. But instead of addressing what matters, it gets redirected. Small reactions, minor frustrations, energy spent on things that don't change anything. And while that's happening, everything accelerates. Noise builds, input stack. Your attention gets pulled in every direction at once, until the pattern becomes invisible, just something you move through automatically. But the structure only works as long as it stays unnoticed, because the moment something interrupts it, even slightly, you begin to see the pattern, not as separate pieces, but as a loop, a system that feeds on your reactions and stabilizes itself through repetition. And once you see that clearly, it starts to lose its hold, because you're no longer inside it. The same way, you're observing it. And from that position, it can't run automatically. The pressure is still there. The signals still appear. But they don't anchor the same way. They don't complete the loop. And without that completion, the system starts to break. Not all at once, but enough to change your position inside it.
So if you've been listening closely, you realize that the archonic system is a closed loop. It generates the fear, which creates the shame, which drives the hunger, which leads to the grief, which explodes into small rage. And the energy from that rage feeds the system to start the fear all over again.
A vicious cycle.
Totally.
But we are living in a unique moment in the great cycle. The loop is starting to wobble because the planetary frequency of the Earth is being intentionally raised by the higher light, moving us toward that 2057 milestone.
We need to talk about the physics of the transition. In Spiritist doctrine, we learned that the Earth is not just a rock. It is a vibrational entity that is graduating from a world of trials and expiations to a world of regeneration.
A world of regeneration is a reality where the loose harvesting mechanics no longer work. It's a frequency range where the dense predatory emotions of the archons simply cannot anchor into the atmosphere.
Think of it like a sound system. For thousands of years, the Earth has been playing a low frequency, bass heavy track of survival and dominance. The archons are bass feeders. They live in those low frequencies.
But the sound technician of the cosmos is currently sliding the faders up. The treble is coming back. The high frequency harmonics of the pleroma are beginning to saturate the planet, and the bass feeders are starting to suffocate.
This is why the world feels so chaotic right now. The archons know their lease is up in 2057, so they are increasing the volume of the background hum and the small rage to record levels, trying to keep you anchored in the old frequency while the ship is trying to sail.
The Spiritist records tell us that in a world of regeneration, the criterion for residency is exclusively vibrational. You won't be judged, quote unquote, by a god at a gate. You'll be sorted by your own internal tuning.
If your internal nervous system is still tuned to that frequency of grudges, hypocrisy, and selfishness, you will find the new earth vibration physically and spiritually unbearable. You will naturally be drawn to a trials, quote unquote, world that matches your density so you can continue your lessons there.
But for the soul that has performed the internal uninstall, the 2057 transition is a homecoming. It is the moment the atmospheric pressure of the world finally matches the internal pressure of your divine spark, allowing you to breathe for the first time in millennia.
We have to be forensic about this, though. Hypocrisy is the anchor that will hold most people back. If you say the word love, but you vibrate resentment in your body when no one is looking, you're still running the archonic code.
The lifting of the veil means that you can no longer lie with your frequency.
Yeah.
In the next cycle, your spiritual nature will be visible to everyone. You will literally wear your vibration on your sleeve.
This is why we call this a manual for the planetary upgrade. You cannot wait until 2057 to change your frequency. You have to start the uninstall now while the old system is still trying to trick you into re-signing the lease.
So in our next segment, we're going to look at the vibrational filter in detail. We're going to talk about how to recognize the superior spirits who are waiting for your invitation and how to close the door on the inferior presences that have been directing your life from the shadows.
We're digging into question 459 of the Spirit's book and the hidden etymology of the world apocalypse. We've identified the walls of the prison, but now we have to talk about the environmental shift. The archonic system is not failing because of a political revolution or a religious awakening. It is failing because the very ground it stands on is changing its frequency.
This brings us to the core of the Spiritist data regarding the year 2057. We've been told for over a century that the Earth is a world of trials and expiations, which in forensic terms means it is a low vibration recycling center for souls that are still learning the basics of sovereignty.
But the lease on this recycling center is expiring. According to the Spiritist record, specifically the communication from high level mentors in the mid 19th century, the Earth is scheduled to graduate into a world of regeneration by 2057.
Now, a world of regeneration is not a heaven in the abstract sense. It is a physical and spiritual reality where the baseline frequency is too high to support archontic parasites. It's a world where loosh harvesting becomes impossible because the resonance no longer vibrate at the frequency of lack or fear.
So this creates what we call the vibrational filter. This is the forensic process where the internal density of your soul determines whether you are compatible with the new earth hardware or if you are vibrationally evicted.
Most people are waiting for a judgment day where a God sits on a throne and looks at a book and, at their deeds and stuff. But the reality is much more clinical. It's a matter of density and buoyancy. If you're too heavy with archontic malware, you simply cannot float in the new atmosphere.
So we have to talk about the category of the excluded. Spiritist doctrine is very clear that entire groups of people who consider themselves good or spiritual will be left out of the 2057 upgrade because they have anchored themselves in a dense frequency.
Think about the person who spends their entire life repeating the word love, like someone that says, Jesus loves you, I'm praying for you, but vibrates with a hidden hypocrisy or a secret resentment when no one is watching. The new earth doesn't care what you declare with your mouth. It only cares what you vibrate in your body.
If you have cultivated selfishness as the axis of your life, or if you have held on to ancient grudges that refuse to forgive, you are carrying vibrational lead. You are essentially making yourself too heavy to survive the frequency shift.
This is why the word apocalypse is so important for our manual. In the original Greek, apocalypsis means the lifting of the veil. And in 2057, the veil being lifted is the one that allows you to hide your true nature.
So everything that depended on concealment to function is going to surface. Your true frequency, your actual spiritual smell will be visible to everyone, and the archons will no longer be able to hide their influence behind the mask of institutional authority or cultural norms.
And this brings us to question 459 of the Spirit's book, which is one of the most forensic passages in all of spiritual literature. Kardec asks, do spirits influence our thoughts and actions? And the answer he receives is chilling. They influence you more than you think. For many times, it is they who direct you.
But we have to look at the mechanics of direction. A spirit, whether superior or inferior, can only direct, quote unquote, you if there is a vibrational affinity. You have to be playing on the same radio station for them to hear you and for you to hear them.
Superior spirits are the mentors of the new earth. They are high frequency intelligences that fully respect your free will. They never invade, they never force, and they never manipulate. They suggest, they inspire, and they wait for an invitation.
Inferior spirits, the archonic parasites, operate through the opposite protocol. They thrive on invasion. They find the unhealed wounds of your fear, your shame, and your rage, and they use those frequencies as an open doorway to influence your nervous system.
If you're vibrating at the frequency of a small rage over a political grievance, you're essentially inviting an archontic neighbor into your house to help you stoke that fire. You're choosing your spiritual company with every single emotion you allow to run on autopilot.
So the 2057 upgrade is the moment where the neighbors are permanently sorted. If you have spent your life inviting inferior presence through your density, you will find yourself relocated to a quote-unquote trials world that matches that company while the earth moves on without you.
So we're going to show you what that looks like in Vignette 3, the 2057 filter.
The system is not collapsing randomly, it's being outgrown. What you're experiencing isn't just instability. It's a shift in the conditions that have been holding this environment together. The structure is still here, but it's starting to lose its ability to stabilize everything inside it. This isn't about belief or identity. It's mechanical. The environment is changing, and everything within it must either adapt or lose coherence. By the time this process completes, the separation will already be determined, not by judgment, but by compatibility. What matters is what you carry internally. Not what you say. Not what you claim. But what actually runs through your system. Every repeated pattern, every default reaction, every emotional loop, all of it forms your internal structure. And that structure either stabilizes under new conditions, or it doesn't. There's no negotiation in that. The system you've been in has allowed contradiction. You could present one thing while carrying something else underneath. That split is becoming harder to maintain. As conditions shift, what is internal becomes more visible. Not to others necessarily, but to the system itself. And once that happens, it can't be hidden. This process isn't waiting for a final moment. It's already happening. Every reaction is part of it. Which means the only place it can be addressed is now.
And time is now. So I want to take the time right now to ask those of you who are watching, if you're watching this live or later in the week, to hit that subscription button and hit the like if you enjoy the stuff that we're putting out there and the information that might help you sort your thoughts a little bit more if you're questioning, if you're unsure. And and if you can, we have links on the description that if you want to support the show, you could do it via PayPal, or you could become a Patreon. And all that information is in the description area. And now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to play. I love mythology, right? And in the mythological world, you know, there's a lot of really interesting things. So I wrote the song called The Titans. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Imagine a world bathed in the light of a larger, warmer sun. Towering floors scrape the skies, and the very air hummed with a primal energy. In this world live the titans, not the gods of myth, but beings of flesh and bone, those scaled to mountains. These weren't giants of brute force alone. Some were artisans shaping mountains with their bare hands, carving rivers with staves of pure crystal. Others were philosophers, their booming voices echoing through valleys as they debated the nature of existence under skies ablaze with auroras unknown to our current world. One such titan was known as Arborea. She was a shepherd of colossal, bioluminescent flora, guiding their growth with songs that resonated deep within the planet's core. Another, Kronos, was said to be able to slow or quicken the flow of time within certain regions, creating pockets of accelerated growth or frozen moments for contemplation. These weren't giants of brute force alone. Some were artisans shaping mountains with their bare hands, carving rivers with staves of pure crystal. Others were philosophers, their booming voices echoing through valleys as they debated the nature of existence under skies ablaze with auroras unknown to our current world. But their world wasn't without its challenges. The very energy that sustained them was volatile, began to flicker, casting long, distorted shadows. Kronos, using all his power, foresaw a cataclysm, a cosmic event that would shatter their world. Oh, these weren't giants of brute force alone. Some were artisans, shaping mountains with their bare hands, rivers with staffs of pure crystal. Others were philosophers, their booming voices echoing through valleys as they debated the nature of existence under skies ablaze with auroras unknown to our current world. In a desperate attempt to preserve something of their civilization, the Titans poured their knowledge, their art, and their very essence into colossal seeds. These seeds were launched into the void, carrying the potential to sprout new worlds, echoes of their own. Booming vortices, shaping up the necrocrystalline nature of existence under skies ablaze with auroras unknown to our current world. The cataclysm came, and the elder earth was no more. But perhaps somewhere out there, one of those seeds took root. Perhaps on a distant planet, colossal flora bloom under an alien sun, whispering tales of the Titans who walked before. These were giants of brute force alone. Some were artisans, shaping mountains with their bare hands, carving rivers with staffs of pure crystal. Others were philosophers, their booming voices echoing through valleys as they debated the nature of existence under skies ablaze with auroras unknown to our current world.
Interesting story.
When's the movie coming out?
I know, right? Look at the image of the two paths. It is the ultimate forensic reality of our time. We are currently in the great sorting, and most people are so occupied with the archonic small rage that they don't even realize they're making a choice.
The Spiritist data tells us that there is no solitude in the absolute spiritual sense. You're always surrounded by a neighborhood of presences that match your current vibration, whether you perceive them or not.
As I was saying earlier, I wonder if we've created all this craziness ourselves. I mean, because the world is a quickening. What's happening right now is just, there's no words. So if you're living in a state of chronic fear or shame, you are surrounded by entities that feed on that fear and that shame. They aren't there to punish you. They are there because you are the restaurant and they are the customers.
The work of waking the battery, the truth about the simulation, starts by closing the restaurant. You have to stop producing the louche that attracts the inferior presences, which requires you to move into the state of pneumatic neutrality.
And I find that with myself, as crazy as things get, it doesn't affect me. I look at it like a movie, like something that is just going on in the world, and I don't let it truly affect me, because that's when you create the louche. That's when you really get sucked in. So neutrality is the anti-louche. When you stop reacting to the archonic triggers, when you stop biting that bait of that hunger loop or that small rage, you become vibrationally invisible to the parasites. They can't see you. They simply lose interest in you because you're no longer a source of food. You're no longer fun for them.
This is how you invite the mentors. Superior spirits vibrate at the frequency of peace, sovereignty, and clarity. When you cultivate those states, you naturally tune in to their signal, and they can begin to guide your jailbreak with forensic precision.
But we have to be honest here. The Archons have one last fail safe in their system. They know that if they can't keep you as a battery while you are alive, they have to try and trap you at the moment you leave the vessel.
And this brings us to the most critical part of our manual, the exit protocol.
Mhm.
We're going to look at the forensic reality of the tunnel of light and the karma contract, quote unquote. And we are going to show you why the life review might be the ultimate archontic deposition.
If you look at all these near-death experience in it, they all kind of have the same little scenery. You know, those that believed in Jesus, they see Jesus. Those that believe that they're going to meet their loved ones when they die, they actually see. It's like it's a movie that they play for you. So if 2057 is the deadline for the planet, the moment of your physical transition is the deadline for your soul. You have to be prepared to tear up that contract and walk past the warden without looking back.
We're going to dig into the light trap mechanics and the reincarnation loop next. This is where the manual gets truly revolutionary. So stay sharp. The warden is watching, but he can't read your frequency if you are standing in the light.
So we have spent the first half of this broadcast auditing the walls of the cell while you are alive. But now we must address the most critical forensic data in the entire manual. We're talking about the exit protocol. The moment you leave the physical vessel and face the border crossing in of the simulation.
This is the part of the transition that most people are unprepared for because we've been conditioned by centuries of religious and New Age even programming to expect a welcome home party. But if you look at the forensic data from the Gnostic texts and the deeper spiritist research, the moment of transition is actually the final loose harvest.
Yep, and in the Apocryphon of John, the Archons are described as masters of mimicry. They know your biological data, they know your emotional triggers, and they know exactly which faces will make you lower your spiritual guard at the moment of death.
The white light and the tunnel reported in so many near-death experiences are framed in our forensic audit as a harvesting funnel. It is designed to induce an intense emotional response, a spike of loosh that effectively stuns the divine spark, allowing the archontic administrators to move in and begin the recycling process.
They will manifest as familiar figures, past relatives, spiritual guides, or religious icons to give you a false sense of safety. Their goal is to get you to agree to a life review, which is essentially an archonic deposition where they act as both judge and prosecutor.
During this review, they will use your own ontological shame and small rage against you. They will highlight your failures, your missed opportunities, and your unresolved grievances to convince you that your quote-unquote debt to the material world is still unpaid.
And sometimes they get you to come right back as your same self because, like, you have unfinished business to do. Go back and get it done, you know?
Yeah.
This is where the concept of karma reveals its true archonic function. In the simulation, karma is not a law of cosmic justice. It is a contract of indebtedness. It is a debt that can never be fully settled because the material world is designed to ensure you make mistakes just by surviving in a predatory system.
The life review ends with a suggestion. You must return to fix what you broke. You must return to learn more lessons. If you agree to this suggestion, you are effectively re-signing the lease on your prison cell, and the Archons win another cycle of your vital energy.
And it doesn't matter what you believe in, what religion, whether it's spiritual, Hindu, whatever it is, it's all the same trap. But here's the forensic key for the jailbreak. They cannot force you to return. The divine spark is of a higher lineage than the Archons, and they know it. So they rely entirely on your informed consent which they obtain through the fraudulent presentation of the karma contract.
Sovereignty at the moment of death is the act of refusal. It is the moment you look at the tunnel of light and the guides and say, I recognize the mimicry, I do not recognize your authority, and I do not owe this simulation a single drop of energy.
That's right. So we have to talk about the bypassing here of the archonic thrones. The Gnostic taught that there are specific passwords or formula of recognitions that allow the spark to fly past the governors of the simulation without being intercepted.
These passwords aren't words you memorize with your brain. They are vibrational states. They are the frequencies of absolute sovereignty and source recognition that make you vibrationally opaque to the archontic sensors as you move toward the pleroma.
And so do you see now why all these religious do's and don'ts and fear and all this dogma they instill in you since you're a kid? So when you die, you feel all this guilt and you're all this stuff, and it's like they have you.
It's part of the system.
It's part of the system. So if you have performed the internal uninstall while you were alive, you won't be fooled by the mimicry when you die. You will see the entities behind the mask, and you will understand that the true light doesn't come from a tunnel. It radiates from the spark within you.
Within you.
Totally.
So Vignette 4 is tearing up the contract.
Here we go. Teach you how to do that.
At the moment of transition, the system doesn't disappear. It presents itself clearly. What you encounter will feel familiar, welcoming, trustworthy. That's how it draws you in. It doesn't force you. It invites you. It offers a version of reality that feels complete. A sense that everything makes sense. But that isn't resolution. It's structure, something you're meant to accept. And once you do, it begins to bind. Not physically, through belief, through the idea that something is still required of you. That something is unfinished. And that's how the system holds you. By keeping your attention outward. But the moment you stop and turn inward, something changes. Because what you're looking for isn't outside of you. It never was. And once that becomes clear, the structure breaks. Not slowly, immediately. What held everything in place loses its position, and what felt like authority disappears. From there, nothing is pulling you back. Nothing is holding you inside it. Only one direction remains. Out.
That's exactly what the man that walked the earth 2,000 years ago came to tell us, free ourselves from this religion, from the Yahweh. The kingdom is within you. It's not outside of you. It's inside of you. But Christianity dupes people and make them believe they have to do all sorts of things to go to heaven.
Kind of reminds me of what we were listening to. This really great, he was a medical professional for many years named Zach Bush. Zach is a spiritual guru at this point, and he was talking about people that go to visit Machu Picchu for an experience, to connect with that spiritual connection of the universe and stuff. And he's like, you are the most incredible part of the experience that will ever exist. You in your human form with this physical body, with the spirit that you have within you. That's the most powerful thing.
You don't have to go anywhere. You can just sit and meditate, go in your garden, go outside, feel the sun, feel the grass, connect with who you are. And that magic that you're looking for with everything outside of you, the trip, the shopping, the this, it's all within you. When you master that, nothing can control you and you finally break free. So that image of the soul flying past the throne is the ultimate goal of the pneumatic mutiny. But we have to be forensic about how we prepare for the flight while we're still inhabiting the vessel. The time to do it is now,
Preparation for the exit is what the spiritist mentors called the elevation of the perispirit. It is the process of making your spiritual body so light and so high frequency that the archontic net simply can't catch you.
You know, and they're going to keep trying to hold you with that religiosity, with that fear, with hell, and you have to repent, and you have to make Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior. And he never came to say he was your Lord and Savior. He came to free you. If you read the Bible correctly and you read the proper books that show you exactly who Jesus was, you'll understand that everything you've been told has been a lie. So if you look at the uploaded spiritist data, it mentions that the solitude in the absolute spiritual sense does not exist. You're always surrounded by presence, mentors, or inferior spirits based on your vibrational infinity.
The forensic reality is that the neighbors you have in their life are the neighbors who will meet you at the moment of death.
Mm-hmm.
If you spent your life in resonance with archontic inferior spirits, they will be the ones wearing the masks of your loved ones in the light trap.
Totally. So superior spirits, the true mentors, never invade your space, and they never use trickery. They will be there to guide you if you have cultivated the frequency to perceive them, but they will respect your sovereignty choice even if you choose to go back into the tunnel.
This is why we emphasize the internal uninstall of fear and shame. If those frequencies are still running in your nervous system when you die, the archons will use them as a vibrational hook to pull you into the life review.
You have to practice neutral sovereignty now. Okay, right now is the time to do it. When you encounter a loose trigger in your daily life, whether it's a political crisis or a personal betrayal, you have to view it as a training simulation for the exit.
Every time you refuse to give your vital energy to an archontic drama, you are strengthening your refusal muscle. You're proving to the system that you are no longer a compliant battery.
By the time the 2057 transition occurs, the planet itself will be assisting in the jailbreak. The rising frequency of Earth will make the light trap glitch and fail for those who have reached a critical mass of gnosis.
But you cannot rely on the planet to do the work for you. You have to be the one to tear up the contract. You have to be the one to realize that the warden has no clothes and the prison has no roof.
So we're moving into our final segment, the pneumatic stance. We're going to show you the practical moment-to-moment application of gnosis that allows you to live as a sovereign in the middle of a simulation.
We're going to talk about the difference between disassociation and presence and how to anchor your frequency in the pleroma while your feet are still on the ground. This is the final chapter of the manual, so keep your signal clear. The upgrade is happening right now.
So we have analyzed the architecture of the prison and the trap at the exit, but the most important question for any prisoner is, how do I breathe while I'm still inside? This brings us to the core of the forensic manual, the state of being that the Valentinian Gnostics call the pneumatic stance.
The pneumatic stance is not a belief system. It is certainly not religion. It is a specific internal orientation of your consciousness that makes you fundamentally incompatible with archontic harvesting. In the Spiritist tradition, this is described as the elevation of the spirit. But in our audit, we call it vibrational sovereignty.
We have to be very precise here about what this stance is not. It is not disassociation, which is a common hylic or material response to trauma, where the soul simply checks out of the body and leaves the nervous system on autopilot.
Dissociation is actually a gift to the archons because it leaves the vessel wide open for inferior spirits to move in and direct your life. The pneumatic stance is the exact opposite. It is a state of hyperpresence where you are fully inhabited in the body, but completely identified with the witness.
Think of it like being an actor on the stage who never forgets that they are an actor. You feel the heat of the stage lights, you say the lines of the character, and you experience the emotion of the scene. But in the back of your mind, you're always aware of the script and the director.
In this metaphor, the archons are the ones trying to rewrite the script to ensure the play is a tragedy. They want you to get so lost in the character's small rage or ontological shame that you forget that you are the one wearing the costume.
The pneumatic stance is the moment you stop acting and start witnessing. When a loose trigger arrives in your daily life, perhaps a financial crisis or a personal betrayal, the pneumatic self does not try to suppress the fear. It simply notices the fear as a frequency running through the hardware.
By noticing the frequency without identifying with it, you break the feedback loop. The archons need you to say, I am afraid, because that I am anchors the energy into your divine spark. But if you say, fear is occurring in the vessel, the energy remains localized in the hardware and cannot be harvested.
This is the stillness protocol. It is the ability to maintain a point of absolute, unshakable silence at the center of your being, even while the material world is screaming in chaos.
The Spiritist data suggests that this internal stillness is the only passport that matters for the 2057 transition. As the planetary frequency rises, the noise of the old world will become deafening, and only those who have mastered the pneumatic stance will be able to hear the signal of the regeneration world.
We're talking about the neutrality as a weapon. To the archons, a neutral soul is a dead zone. In their sensors, they cannot find a hook in a beam that refuses to polarize.
This is why they work so hard to keep you engaged in the polarized dramas of politics, war, and social conflict. They need you to pick a side, any side, because as long as you're against something, you are still vibrating in the frequency of conflict, which is their primary food source.
To uninstall the archons, you must reclaim your right to non-participation. You must realize that your vital energy is too precious to be spent on a simulation designed to waste it.
And we're going to move into our final vignette now. This is the visual and auditory representation of the pneumatic stance. The moment the spark recognizes itself and the simulation begins to dissolve.
So the vignette number 5, the pneumatic stance.
What changes isn't the world. It's your position inside it. Everything can continue. Movement, noise, reaction. But it no longer defines you. You're still here, still moving through the same environment. But there's now a separation between what happens and what you are. Reactions still appear, but they don't anchor. They pass through, without becoming something you carry. At first, it's subtle, easy to miss, but something begins to shift. Patterns do complete the same way. What used to pull you in stops closing, and without that closure, the system loses stability. Not all at once, just enough to change how you move through it. The same triggers appear, but they don't land. The same loops begin, but they don't finish. And over time, what once felt automatic stops forming entirely. What remains is stillness, not in the environment, but at the center. From that position, everything becomes clear. You see the patterns as they happen. And because you see them, you don't enter them. That's the shift. Not when the world changes, but when you stop responding the way you were conditioned to. That's the exit.
Exactly. So the prison was only a dream you were too tired to question. That line is a forensic summary of the human condition for the last 6,000 years.
But the tiredness is being replaced by a sudden electric clarity as the planet enters the influence of the regeneration cycle. We're seeing people wake up in record numbers, not because they've read a book, but because the frequency of the simulation is becoming physically unbearable.
Totally. So we have to be honest about the risk of the upgrade. As the archons lose their grip, they're going to increase the intensity of the small rage and the hunger loop in a desperate attempt to keep the batteries charged.
You'll see more polarization, more crisis theater, more attempts to pull you into a state of background hum fear. This is a time to double down on the stillness protocol, to realize that the more chaotic the world becomes, the more important your neutrality is.
If you look at the Spiritist records, the transition in 2057 is described as a cleaning of the house. This means that the inferior spirits, the archonic parasites, are being swept away, but they will try to take as many souls as possible with them into the lower worlds of trials.
They take you by agreement. They take you by convincing you that your grudge is justified, that your selfishness is survival, and that your hypocrisy is necessary.
So to uninstall the archons, you have to be willing to be transparent. You have to look at those dark corners of your own frequency and realize that those shadows are not you. They are simply the places where the malware is still running.
As the veil lifts, the hypocrisy we mentioned earlier will become a physical weight. You won't be able to say you are a being of light while you're still vibrating at the frequency of hidden resentment. The new earth will simply eject you like a body ejecting a splinter.
But for those who have stood in the pneumatic stance, 2057 is the moment of absolute resonance. It is the moment you finally find yourself in a world that matches the beauty and the sovereignty of the spark you've been carrying in the dark for so long.
This is the end of the manual, but it is the beginning of your application. You are the sovereign, you are the witness, and you are the one who decides whether the contract continues or ends tonight.
So we have one final segment to wrap up this Tuesday podcast. We're going to give you the daily maintenance routine for the pneumatic stands and the final sign for transition radio.
Stay sharp, stay neutral, and remember, the warden is blind to the one thing that actually matters, the light that you are holding right now.
So we've reached the final section of our forensic manual, and this is where the theory of the jailbreak meets the hard reality of your daily life. It is one thing to understand the archonic simulation in the stillness of this broadcast, but it is another thing entirely to maintain your sovereignty when you step back into the high-pressure environment of the material world.
The archons rely on the fact that you will forget everything we've talked about the moment you face your first loose trigger tomorrow morning. They've designed the modern world to be a continuous stream of interruptions, crises, and demands on your attention to ensure that your pneumatic stance never has a chance to stabilize.
To counter this, you must implement a daily maintenance routine, a series of vibrational checkpoints that ensure you are unlinking from the archonic OS at regular intervals. Think of this as an antiviral scan for your spiritual nervous system, keeping your frequency clear as we approach the 2057 milestone.
The routine begins with the morning uninstall. Before you check your phone, before you engage with the news, and before you start the internal dialogue about your debts and failures, you must anchor yourself in the witness position.
In those first few moments of wakefulness, your perispirit is still relatively fluid from the dream state, making it the perfect time to set your frequency. Spend 60 seconds simply acknowledging the divine spark within you that exists independently of your name, your history, and your body's mortality.
State clearly and internally, I am the witness of this simulation, and I do not recognize the authority of the architect over my vital energy. This is not a positive affirmation in the New Age sense. It's a forensic declaration of sovereignty that alerts the archontic sensors that you are no longer a compliant battery.
Then as you move through your day, you must practice midday witnessing. Every time you feel one of the 5 walls, whether it's the background hum of fear or a flash of small rage, you must immediately categorize it as foreign hardware.
If a colleague slights you and you feel the fire of rage rising, do not try to calm down or be a good person. Instead, look at the rage with the forensic coldness and say, there is the small rage malware trying to harvest my cosmic fire. I refuse to spend my fire on this puny matchstick.
Right? By naming the frequency, you prevent the archons from hooking into your identity. You remain the sovereign, and the emotion remains a localized event in the material vessel that eventually dissipates without being harvested.
Finally, you must perform the evening discharge. Before you go to sleep, you must consciously unlink from every attachment, every grievance, and every desire you encountered during the day.
The archons are used to unfinished business to trap you in the dream loop, where they continue the luge harvest while you are unconscious. By performing a total vibrational discharge, by forgiving the depth of the day, you ensure that your soul enters a sleep state as a free agent, not a tethered prisoner. I usually like to do a good 10, 15-minute frequency meditation and, just like enter the sleep state in good vibrations.
This daily maintenance is how you prepare for the 2057 planetary upgrade. You're essentially training your frequency to be compatible with the world of regeneration, so that when the final filter arrives, your resonance with the new earth is already a stabilized habit.
Remember, the lifting of the veil is an internal process. The more you uninstall the archonic software now, the more transparent and luminous your reality will become as the transition accelerates.
Well, we are out of time for tonight, but the frequency remains open. The jailbreak is happening in every heart that refuses to be small, in every mind that refuses to be afraid, and in every soul that remembers its home in the pleroma.
What you just seen isn't something to believe, it's something to notice.
Because once you start to see it, you can't move through it the same way anymore.
The system doesn't end all at once. It loses its hold, one pattern at a time.
And the moment you stop feeding it, even slightly, your position inside it begins to change.
Not through force, not through resistance, just through clarity.
And from that position, everything becomes easier to see.
Not because the world has changed, but because you have.
Well, this has been Waking the Battery, the truth about the simulation.
A special broadcast of Transition Radio.
If something in you is already recognizing this, stay with that.
We'll be back next Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time.
But until then,
Stay aware.
and stay out of that loop.
We love you guys.
But
But remember to always
love
love
yourselves too.
Good night and be safe out there.
Another journey is in, but the path is ever bright. Transition radio's call, guiding us through the night. Transition, open your mind and soul.
stories untold.
Transition radio, where new